Welcome, team, to episode 17 of the Keep Going podcast, Athletes Shining a Light on Mental Health. This is Luke Weed in Knoxville, Tennessee, with Patrick O'Malley up in Chi-Town. What's up, Pat?
We're living, man. Great Sunday. Been a great weekend back home, getting stuff ready for the move. How about out Knox, my boy?
Buddy, it's pretty chill here compared to what you've been going through with the move. Don't brush that off like it's nothing.
No, though, I can't be mad, man. It's all good things, right? You know, it's hard to sit here and complain about good things. And that's the perspective I have. And I'm blessed to get to move, right? So I don't have to move, I get to. It's a unique perspective for me. And a couple of years ago, I would have felt a lot different about this. That's for sure.
100%. Good vocabulary change there to put yourself in a positive mindset. 100%.
No doubt. Sun was shining. It might have been snowing, but we got it done.
That's right. Guys, before we get going on anything like too deep or too heavy, before we get into the interview, I just want to mention, check out the keepgoingpodcast.blog. Been doing a lot of work on that. We feel pretty proud of the product that we're putting out there. I'm starting to do weekly blogs. There's going to be one that come out today before the episode drops. So excited about that. A little recap on Richard Jurgen's episode, our first guest.
No, shout out Rich. And man, was an electric. It's crazy how far we've come since then. But you ever need a run through a wall moment, Rich Jurgen will supply that. And
hey, he'll get it for you.
No doubt. And shout out to you for writing the blog, getting the website going, Instagram at the KG podcast. But at the end of the day, Luke, we're not specialists.
That's right, buddy. We're not psychiatrists. We're not psychologists. I hope we said that last week, because now I'm kind of like feeling like it was a fever dream. I don't remember if I did or not. And I'm hoping people don't think we are after that. But no, man, we're just a couple of ex-athletes trying to help out, do something positive for the community.
100%. And shout out all the networks. I mean, last week's episode, Electric Factory, loved it. Shannon Legaff, got to shout her out. She was fantastic, her and her network. But super excited to have my boy, Mike. I got to shout the Instagram, Mo Morris. Can't wait to have him on today. But Luke, before we go into that, what did you do this week for your mental health?
It's a big one, buddy. No booze for me.
Whoa.
No booze.
Talk to me about it. Talk to the people.
No booze. And I haven't told you this yet, I don't think.
Talk to me.
So we're a week in, no booze. I think we're going to do at least a month. That's kind of the plan right now. Just trying to stay fresh and stay ready to go during the week.
If you don't mind me unpacking that. So is it more as a focus thing, or what are you thinking?
I think I have an addictive personality, whether it's a good or bad thing. Right. The podcast, right. Addicted to, getting things going, addicted to doing the website, addicted to writing a blog. I can throw that word out for a million different things I do. It comes down to passion, but for some things, and it comes down to a detriment for other things. And I think booze was one of the detriment side of it. And I can be social without it. I don't need it to hang out with anybody. I don't need it to have a conversation with anybody. Obviously, me and you are doing this. We can go up and talk to somebody. So I don't need any social lubricant or anything like that. And I think just going to, go at it, clear mind from here on out for a while.
Well, I love that for you, man. It's about balance and understanding what priorities come first. And I'm first and foremost proud of you. It doesn't mean it has to be a permanent thing, but understand that you got bigger things in front of you right now, and that can kind of take a back seat. From a guy that did that pretty much every weekend for 5 years, and now from you knowing me and how I do things now, you're gonna be surprised, man, how great you feel and where other time goes, and you don't catch yourself going to Taco Bell every Sunday for 3 years straight without knowing. There's definitely some positives, man. So I'm proud of you. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you need anything.
100%, dude. Appreciate you. What'd you do this week?
Yeah, man. Shout out my girlfriend, Ashton. She was huge on this one. I was kind of running around a couple weeks ago, and she just sat me down on FaceTime and was like, dude, jump in the shower and listen to the drops, listen to the water, and slow yourself down. I've been doing that every morning now, cold shower or warm shower.
Nice.
It's been a huge help for me. So I guess the message is, and like I said, shout out to my girlfriend, Ashton. She's been huge with some of the self-care stuff, but listening to the rain, listening to the water droplets, slowing everything down, and then starting my day. Because, a lot of you guys, a lot of listeners have 10, 11, 12-hour days. Started off strong, put something calming in that morning routine. I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, that's a big shout out. I absolutely love that, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, without further ado, we do have Mike Morris, Villanova's finest, in the house. What is up, Mike?
Gentlemen, how are we doing?
How
Okay,
do we
we're
feel
doing it.
about him putting the side tag
Hold on, we're
after
doing it.
our prelude? Come on.
I knew
doing it.
Luke had his ready to go
This is
just
the
in
first
case I
front
pulled.
word.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is the first frontward facing hat I've worn in 3
Yes,
years.
that's great.
Love it, boy.
and
Mike, in all seriousness, man, we're excited.
yes,
Yeah. We know you are now currently living on the north side, but you've been a south side guy. So we'll dig into that.
yes.
Before we go into any Cubs sock stuff, what did you do this week for your mental health?
Well, it's kind of funny after hearing Luke's what he's doing, because I definitely need to take a page out of that book after last evening. But that ties into what I've been doing the last couple weeks. That's really given me a boost across the board, is just spending a lot of time with people I care about, because especially like I got my own apartment here. I spend a lot of time, I only go into the office twice a week. So there's a lot of just, alone time, which I like. I like being able to decompress and everything. But when you're in a funk, and you're by yourself, like it's so easy to work yourself into a deeper funk. And so I went 2 weeks ago, was down in Texas, visited my brother, lives down there. And it was just basically a week with, my parents, my sister, my brother, his wife, and their 2 kids. And just, when you're like holding your nephew and stuff, it gives you this kind of weird boost, and it kind of is a getting an idea of like what it would be like to have your own kid, where you're like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, like this is, this is like ours. I don't have to deal with all the headaches of having a kid,
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
getting to see them, it really gave me a boost. And then last night was awesome. It was 2 of my best friends got married. One, Kelsey, the bride I went to high school with, and then Andrew, the groom, I met a few years back because I've been dating for a while. And just to see, all these friends and everyone together, happy, things like that can give you, that boost for a month, 2 months, 3 months, like just kind of getting things back on track. And to that point, I got my fun, and now I think I am ready to take a bit of a Luke Wheat,
Hey, but it can do it to you. It can do
cleanse
it to
here.
you.
So exactly.
I love that. And we're 17 episodes in, Luke.
That's a wild number.
It was
Jeez.
like crazy to think about, but I've never done this before. So we're gonna try it
That's
out.
what, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, I think, right?
There it
Yeah,
is.
that's
There it is.
right.
Let's go. But here's what I'll say: 2 things. One, you can really get a nice dopamine kick from your people. We say it all the time on this pod. Love is one of the best things we do, if not the number one, right? So getting those people in your corner, strength in numbers, caring about each other. There's a lot of love there. It makes you feel good, makes you feel fuzzy inside.
Absolutely.
The second thing, this is what I've never done before. I want to ask you about when you're living by yourself in Wrigley
Mm-hmm.
and you're feeling those feelings of being lonely, you're in a funk. How do you get over that? Because I've never had to deal with that. I've always lived with a roommate. So walk us through that and walk our listeners through that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. I think nowadays there's a lot of dialogue about, what contributes to mental health, like what can get, what is, clinical, what is just you being in a bad mood, like those types of things. And I know there's a lot of like narratives that, oh, like it's just like if you eat well, exercise, do these things, that gets rid of everything, And on the one side, it's like, um, it's not a cure all, but I do find it's always going to help, So I don't like when people kind of diminish it to that, where it's just like, well, if you, worked out hard every day, you're never going to feel depressed. But at the same time, if you don't work out ever and you eat like shit all the time, like you're
Yeah.
probably going to feel, it's going to definitely heighten things. So for me, that's huge, is realizing like, hey, I got to go sweat it out, go to the gym, do things like that. But then also like I have really good friends that are better than me, to be honest, in terms of like really reaching out. And so, I have a couple friends that'll, FaceTime me like every other week or, things like that. Especially going to school in Philly, a lot of my best friends from college are all over the place. So those are the types of things where I'm not as good as I should be sometimes about like reciprocating that, all the time.
Mhm.
But like when I get that, that means a ton, where it's like, oh, like I feel like I'm in the same room as one of my buddies in, Boston or Sacramento or New York or whatever. So that's the two big things I would say is staying active, making sure you're getting out of the apartment, because that's the other thing when I'm working remote. Like I've had times where don't leave the apartment for a whole day, and then the next day you go out and feel see the sunlight and feel some air, and you're like, oh, this is what it feels, like.
Yeah, the sun's there for a reason. The sun's there for a reason.
Exactly. So that's the thing is just getting out there, even if it's something little, and I think you guys have talked about the idea of like mental health walks, maybe, or maybe I just saw that on a one of the posts on
Hot
our
girl
page.
walk. Hot girl walk.
Maybe.
Yes.
Mike, you can
yes.
join us in the hot girl walk. That's all right.
Exactly.
Mustaches are welcome in the hot girl
Exactly. So it's like I think that's huge is just getting out there and just, taking it all in and just remembering like, hey, part of something a lot bigger than myself and just, really getting to appreciate all that, and kind of get yourself rolling. So though long way to a short point, kind of get your butt off the, and get outside, do something,
Yeah, that's none of these conversations are worth a simple anser.
Exactly.
They're all worth
True.
a more complicated answer. That's for sure, dude. That's
Mike,
for sure.
that's growth, my boy. Knowing you for the
100%.
last 5 years, that's something that, being a former college athlete at a pretty high level and being awesome with NCSA in your career before you bounced over to Paylocity, you can see that growth and how it domino effects. And I know our listeners run that back. That was fantastic stuff. Appreciate that. Let's jump into early years, Mike Morris, right? Like,
yes.
You obviously are a huge sports fan. You obviously were a high-level athlete. You played college rugby. We'll go into that. How did you start loving sports the way you did? Walk me through younger Mike or Michael.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yes, Michael. Yes. So funny enough, actually, I grew up in the same hometown. You know this. Luke probably doesn't know this. I grew up in the same town as DK.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah. So like same exact suburb.
Shout out DK.
Yes,
Yeah,
great
shout
guy,
'em
great
out.
guy. And basically coming up, I had two older brothers, so that always kind of naturally lended itself to, whether they're playing pick up football in the backyard or, they're going to their game, stuff like that. I was exposed to it early. And then really the first sport that I would say I kind of fell in, actually realistically soccer, ironically enough, is probably the sport that I first fell in love with. Exactly. You
Beautiful
wouldn't know
game.
it.
The beautiful game.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't know it from looking at me now, but that was that was the primary sport.
Yeah, the socks hat, I know. The socks hat.
Exactly. Exactly. But no, so and that the nice thing about soccer is it was always the sport that you could start the earliest, because it was, you just need the ball and there's not as much risk, if kids aren't necessarily prepared to do it the right way. And so I would say that I truly, got a huge passion for sport though when I was able to start playing football in like 5th grade. And that instantly was one of those things where it was like, okay, I'm a bigger guy. And this is finally something that lends itself to it, versus trying to be like a big old skilled player in other sports and tripping over myself. Why not just let me put my hand in the dirt, and kind of do that. So it was that, was huge for me all through, junior high and everything. And then getting to play that in high school. And that's kind of where I'd never even thought about rugby until high school. I was actually
Stop there for me. Stop there.
Yes. Sorry. I went a little.
You're good. You're good.
No, you're good, man. I got to give you some love because rugby is something in our area, and this is Luke and for the rest of the country, it's not big here.
No, not at all.
It's not. So you get into high school and college, you played around with some sports, you found your niche. High school wise, how did you decide it was going to be rugby, and how did you move that towards Villanova?
Yeah, so this is a great story actually. Like my oldest, so I got the two older brothers. One went to Ignatius, where I ended up going to high school. One went to the other one at Tamaris on the south side. And the one that went to Ignatius, he was a big volleyball player. Like that was his sport.
Cool.
And that's a spring sport. And he always kind of did the football volleyball combo. So I kind of just assumed, I was like, I'm not nearly good enough at baseball to even try this, So I'm going to probably go the volleyball route. And I went to one of the like freshman camps, like well before the season, where they're kind of like, hey, if you want to try this out, like get some balls around. and I ended up ripping my shorts down the middle at this volleyball camp.
Oh,
Sweet.
and,
it shows
and
I
I was
rip my
like,
Then it was
pants.
done.
exactly,
And it was done. Yeah.
exactly. So I was like so embarrassed. Luckily, I knew the coach because he had coached my brother, and I had already kind of, been like, I don't know if this thing's for me. And then after that, I was like, well, I definitely don't think this thing's for me. And luckily then I heard a meeting about like, oh, the rugby team's having a meeting, preseason meeting. And I ended up being like one of two kids in my class to go out for rugby because I think everyone was just so kind of confused by it. And I was obviously, but I just saw the dudes that were in the room. I was like, looks like a bunch of big uglies that kind of, fit in here, like
Grit,
a
baby.
bunch of,
Grit and
exactly,
determination.
exactly. So I was like, okay, this is these seem like my people. And then literally the way that we were taught the game back in the day, there was this like Rugby World Cup game.
Mhm.
And our coach was like, it's a lot easier for me to just tell you guys to go get that than having to break everything down while all these other guys know the game already. And so he literally, that's how we learned early on how to play rugby, was playing this game. I was like, oh, you can't pass forward. This is how you bring guys over, and
Look, Kyler Murray's doing the same thing in the
exactly,
NFL. It's
exactly,
like it
exactly,
works,
Wow.
dude. It works,
exactly.
dude.
Okay, yeah, exactly. He's the poster child now for
For video
for
games.
gaming.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no, man, so that was kind of how I learned it. And it was just one of those things where for up to that point, 4 or 5 years of football, I was always, the lineman that, was either, eating up people on defense or, kind of having to just, block and kind of miss all the glory on that field. And then on rugby, it was like I see all these big guys, running with the ball and, getting to make all the tackles and do all that. And I was like, shoot, this is a game that I think I'm going to enjoy because I get to kind of feel that rush that all the skill position players, feel. I can
Mhm.
finally kind of do that. So yeah, I mean, again, another long, long way
And
to
I'm
a quick
assuming
point,
you
but
played up the middle, right?
Like,
yes,
yeah.
Okay.
yes. And then I
Dude,
was the guy that did the little lifties
Yeah.
on the sidelines.
this is so crazy to me.
Mhm.
And I want to highlight it for the listeners because you go in one day. We've mentioned 5. I'm counting on a sheet of paper how many sports we've mentioned so far that you've
Mhm.
dabbled in.
Mhm.
You go into that, obviously, volleyball. You said volleyball, correct? And you go in there and you rip your shorts. And it's really like it's a low moment for you. It's embarrassing. It's like
Mhm.
it's something that you're like, wow. Of course, today that happens. You stumble upon a rugby meeting and you end up at Villanova, going to a great school, getting a great education, and getting to compete in the sport that you love. And that's a huge part of your identity to this day. And I want to go into that. But just for our listeners, if you have some setbacks early on, it's just opening other doors. Don't just shut all of them because one door closes. Mike, that's inspiring. Luke, what do you got on that?
Minor setback for a major comeback. I mean, come
Yes,
on
sir.
for the kid.
Get that boy a tailor. Get that boy.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. Hey, my mom's a seamstress. She'll get those pants fixed right up. We'll get you back on the court, baby.
Exactly. Well,
No,
and
that's fantastic. All right, Mike. So now we get to Nova,
mhm.
which this is different from a city boy out here in Chicago.
Oh,
You get
yeah.
out,
Get a boy.
Pennsylvania, you get to Philly. It's like in the heart of Philly, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. So it's just outside, it's in a suburb of Philadelphia. And actually it's kind of funny, the way and I feel like that's probably how most cities are, where it's like you walk down one block and you're in like one of the ritziest neighborhoods ever. And then you walk down the other block and you're somewhere where you don't belong. So I feel like that was kind of the setup at Nova where, early on it was like, whoa, there's a lot of rich people around here. And
Yeah,
then
different.
by the time, yeah, exactly. And
Different.
then well, that was the thing, is because again, like I grew up incredibly fortunate, didn't want for a lot of things early on, and I always kind of almost, you almost feel some guilt about, or it's just like, oh shoot,
Mm.
like you start meeting in high school, your buddies that are going through a lot more financial insecurity in that sense. And then when I go out to Nova, I was like, oh shoot, like there's
Here
it's
we
one of
are.
those exactly.
Yeah.
Well, then you start seeing these dudes with like, Daddies on Wall Street and all that stuff, and it's like, oh my God, like there's
100%.
levels to this, and it was kind of nice almost to be kind of humbled in that sense of like, oh, like we're all just dudes, like we're all just kind of doing our thing. But definitely a huge culture shock, going
Yeah. So
from the Midwest to the East Coast. I think there's a lot of just built-in misunderstandings sometimes. I had a roommate my freshman year. He's just like, oh, like Chicago, like you guys are super into NASCAR there, right? I'm just like, what? Like what? Like, what are you talking
well,
about?
kind of. It depends what day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm gonna
Well,
say if you're in the right group chat, then yeah.
true. Yeah. It's like, but then you could say that about any state, where it's
Yeah,
like, that's
exactly.
such a hilarious like generalization to come up with.
Yeah.
So I was like running into a lot of that. Just kind of misunderstanding. Most of, like, obviously my friends that I made were not bad at all. They were the best, people
Yeah.
ever, but you certainly ran into a lot of, people that had clearly never met someone from like a different region,
Yeah, you're
um,
saying no, that's Iowa a lot.
yeah,
Whenever they're
exactly.
actually
Well, yeah.
not.
Or like, that's like Bama or,
Yeah,
Mississippi or
yeah.
whatever, like,
There's
and
the misconception, right? Like they
oh
just don't
yeah,
know. And,
exactly.
and Mike, you go there by yourself, correct? You didn't go with anybody from Chicago.
So that's the funny thing is I did actually
Oh,
of
okay.
all of well, yeah, like of the odds of this, one of my best friends, there's only two people from my whole class that went there, and one of them was like one of my best friends. And we, I'm kind of glad we did end up living separately so we could kind of, divide and conquer, so to speak. And so my freshman year, I had, one roommate from Jersey, one roommate from New York. My whole hall was, Philly, Baltimore,
East
every
Coast Central, dude. You're
exactly.
not
Well,
kidding. Yeah.
and that was the thing where I didn't realize until I was living out there just the difference in geography, where
Mm.
it's like you can hop on a megabus for an hour and get wherever the heck you want to go. Like I just did a trip in November at another friend's wedding, and I literally just I flew into New York, got to spend time with those friends, then took a bus to Philly to see a couple friends, then I took a bus to DC, and they were all hour. Whereas, in Chicago, it's like you're going on a trek. I guess you got like Milwaukee and Indy, but to go to like St. Louis or
Mhm.
Nashville, Knoxville, wherever, like it's kind of
Yeah.
a trek. So that was kind of cool, just being that close to everything. But again, they're all used to all that. For me, I'm like, whoa, wide-eyed, like this is really cool, but still an adjustment for sure.
Yeah, let's stay on the adjustment aspect, right?
Mhm.
Because, Luke was lucky enough to play at a school that, we knew of. It was in the area. It was the same thing for me. You go out there to Nova, you play a big time sport at a big time prestigious school, right? It's obviously ups, downs, highs, lows, in betweens. When you were having struggles out there, what did you do to kind of combat that? If you were struggling in the classroom or, would it be on the pitch or on the field? What did you guys call that?
The pitch, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
What would you do? Because you're by yourself. You chose that kind of too, because you had a buddy,
Mhm.
but you guys didn't live together. What'd you do to help yourself out of that?
Yeah, and to be honest, like my sophomore year, I was doing a terrible job of managing my mental health. I was in a bad way. Because I went to school when I was studying biology, and I thought I wanted to be a dentist. So I'm doing like trying to join these organizations, working a job on campus, to help pay for that, like playing rugby. And I had this major that was just kicking my butt, because I had no passion for it. I was just like, that seems like a nice cushy job that'll, it'll be cool to
Mhm.
do. So why not do it? And by my sophomore year, I was never, never kind of getting like C's in high school. Like that wasn't my MO. And then I get to school and I'm seeing these C's on my report card for like my like harder science classes. I'm like, shoot, like I'm never going to be making this. And I remember calling my parents sophomore year, my dad, and just like apologizing profusely, like I didn't know what else to say. I was just like, I'm not cutting it, man. Like I can't do this or that. And truly what helped me turn the corner in college was just creating that support staff, figuring out what friends were taking away from your mental health and which ones were contributing positively to it, And then also with rugby, just getting back into full, lifting as much as I could, running as much as I could. And to Luke's point too, the nice thing, like you had mentioned earlier, just with wanting to kind of give up booze for a while, kind of get that clarity back. That was the nice thing about, we would always play our games early on Saturdays. And it was almost kind of helpful that I didn't have that temptation to go out and make a fool of myself on Friday nights, because I was already probably one of the biggest and out of shape guys on the team. So it was like I didn't want to add a hangover on top of that, as I'm trying to run for 80 minutes. So it was
Set
always
yourself up for success.
exactly. So I was keeping it low key, and that helped a ton too, just focusing on that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, sophomore year ended up being probably my best year personally, and probably our best year as a team, just because I kind of did end up locking in a little bit more. But ultimately, like to your question, Pat, the big thing was realizing, hey, like you're not doing this for anybody but yourself.
Yeah.
You always want to do right by your loved ones, but having that guilt wasn't healthy. It was like, well, shoot, like, why are you apologizing to him? Like, this is your life. You're the one who's, out here, grinding. This is just a sign that maybe you're not meant for this specific thing. Again, like the rip in the pants at the volleyball game, like it's
Yeah.
more so just like a kind of a, sometimes if you're a little stubborn, you need a little more aggressive slap in the face to kind of get on the right track. And I got it. And I felt a lot, from that point on, had a great college experience, from, second half of sophomore year through senior year. Everything else kind of started falling in line. So it was
Well,
great.
it looks like that what you were talking about this week with your mental health, right? Like how
Mhm.
you were setting yourself up with getting around people you care about. It looks like you started that in college, right?
Yeah.
Setting up your own support group. It also looks like you started the eating well and working out in college. So you learn things through sports that are helping you to this day whenever you're in the real world and in your own career. So, that just goes to show that whether you continue it at the professional level or not, that there's so much to learn by being involved with a team and having other people to take care of or other people to support beside yourself.
Yeah, man, you're setting up habits as a college student athlete that you're going to carry the rest of your life. And another great one, it's not a habit, but you're going to run into tough situations, and you can't just look around and go, well, I guess that's it, right? There's just so many lessons we can be learned playing sports and going through what athletes go through. And unfortunately, if you're not an athlete, it's tougher when you get into the real world, in my opinion. So, Mike, I love that, man. I got the chills when you were talking about how you hit the ground running after sophomore year and you never look back. And we say it every episode, and I touched on it with Shannon last week and the week before, but we often see people where they're at and not where they came from and what it took to get to where you're at, man. So I got to ask you, with the confident man, the well-spoken man, the successful man you are now, give me your keep going moment.
Yeah, and in terms of the keep going moment, from listening to the episodes, I was trying to figure out, so the keep going moment. This is the moment of adversity that you're facing, or this is the moment of kind of enlightenment. Like, or I guess is it probably like a little blend of both. What exactly
Mike,
the keep going
it's
moment?
your episode, man. It's what
True,
was
true.
the keep going
We've had a
moment.
couple different,
Yeah.
we've had a couple different takes on it. So
Take it your way, bro. Take it your way.
So yeah. So to be honest, and not to bring the energy down a bit, but right when I graduated college, I came home and my grandma was about, at this point, like 90 plus. And she was kind of on her way out. Like, she was always super sharp, but just getting to that point where, okay, physically starting to break down a little bit. So what I did when I first got home, I could tell right away, like any kid that goes away and then comes home, it's like, this is too much of my parents right now. Like they're kind of in the middle of everything.
yeah,
So I got to staying at my grandma's place. So it was just, I was kind of, helping her out. She was, helping me out just as much, just by, kind of being there. And as she kind of reached that point where she didn't really give a shit anymore about like sugarcoating things. She was kind of
hmm
just like, hey, Mike, like, you're still talking about, trying to, claw at this, trying to go towards dentistry, or, do these things. And clearly you're doing these things to either impress other people or, make people proud of you, but this isn't you and this isn't what you want. And it was such a nice cathartic moment where it's like, hey, like I kind of tell she's on her way out. I'm getting to be here, alone with her in her, last few months, but then also just kind of getting that wisdom from her till the very end. And I think she was the first person of my support staff in terms of the family members to kind of, get, slap me in the face a little bit and be like, hey, stop trying. Because I'd say my biggest shortcoming is trying to please people. I think that's a lot of times that's how I derive my self-worth. When I'm in a weird spot, I'll kind of look to like make sure like, oh, but they like me, right? They're cool with what I'm doing, right? So kind of getting that from my grandma, just being like, hey, stop being spy, like
Yeah.
just do your thing. Like stop looking around for approval, just go do you. So that was huge for me, and I would say that kind of helped me, obviously still such a work in progress right now, but that really kind of gave me that confidence to just, man, just if you are good to people and you're working your butt off, you're always going to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, even if I'm not, in terms of career success or in terms of like relationship success or things like this, even if those aren't all clicking, at least I know that people, again, feeding into my issue of like, oh, people could see your respect, but you can feel that you're doing your job, so that was huge for me.
Mike, that is exactly the definition of man. Man, is that fantastic. And I got a couple of takeaways and I'll be conscious of your time, but
I got all the time, Patty.
It's
all the time.
It comes back to what we touched on earlier, being you, right? Doing it for you, because if you can be yourself and be your best person, it's going to go feed into different things. It's going to rub off on certain things and different people, and they're going to get the best you, your support group, your job in the community. That was the big takeaway there. And your grandma saw it. She said, Mike, you're great. I love you. You're my grandson, but be you and be proud of that. And you're going to make a life of impact. And look at us now, chopping it up 5 years later, from drinking beers in Wrigleyville to being on a mental health podcast. That's why we do what we do. And I love that. I wish I could give your grandma a hug, and your family should be proud of what you're doing, man. I'm proud of you. Luke, go ahead.
No, 100%. I think for me personally, I'm so much like my family. Like we have such the same personality that sometimes it's hard for me to hear things from them and take it the right way. You're so similar that you butt heads a lot. And dude, that's just a good reminder for me, Mike. So I appreciate you saying that. And that's a wake-up call for me too, to just make sure I'm respecting my elders and listening to what they're telling me, because they have your best interest in heart.
100%. And to your point, like I know when you do get a family member saying that stuff, it always stings a little more, because it's like, shit, they do know me. They do know, like they know exactly what my shortcomings are.
The rule of thumb is respect can never waver. Take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah.
1,000%. Because that's the other big thing. I think everyone kind of, sorry, I was to interrupt, but I was just said that's another thing is as you get on is just realizing, always show the respect, but then also understanding, like to your point, Pat, like they're humans just like you, and I feel like the older you get, the more you realize they're not superheroes, the older family members in your life that you always idolized, and understanding that like they could say something, and instead of always just being like, they get it, there'll always be that one little thing where like, wait, that's not right. Like that's that. I don't agree with that, because I've formed my own ethics and my own morals and my own, I've taken everything that you taught me and I've become this person, and then not, dropping everything and being like, oh shoot, I'm wrong, they're right every time, knowing what your values are and kind of pursuing those. Because I've had a number of times with family members where I'm like, am I being a bad son, or am I being a bad this because I don't agree with them? And you're like, no, we're just different people, Yeah,
it's what Pat talks about all the time, the non-negotiables.
Yes.
Right. As you go through life, you start figuring out what's super important to you. And that doesn't mean that you have to not respect other people's non-negotiables as well. right? Everybody's
100%.
got their own, and you can coexist in that same world. So, you're just vibing with other people, and that's what it is.
That's Luke. That is a fantastic piggyback. I agree, man. Wow, guys, as you can't tell, we could do this all night. Like I'm here.
Dude.
Like I might go over to Mike's house. We might chop it up for 3 more hours.
Keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Mike, I know our listeners are gonna want to talk to you, man. It happens every week with the guests we have on. Of the 100+ people, we wanted you on, and gosh, my cup is full, boys. I'm feeling great. Mike, where do these teams find you, my boy?
Yep. So I'm pretty sure it's Mike Mo Morris on Twitter and Instagram. And then if you're ever in Wrigleyville, hit Pat and I up.
I love that. And Mike, I know you had a great job now. Obviously, we touched on that a little bit. Anything else cooking in your personal life that you want our listeners to know, or any final things you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, congratulations again to Andrew and Kelsey on their marriage last night. Give it to them.
Let's go.
In terms of my personal life, I'm thinking now it's been we're coming out of busy season, just with the trip to Texas and a lot of other stuff. So in a more boring sense, I think again, I'm going to try and follow the Luke Wheat model of giving this next month up to
making an impact.
Exactly.
Just a month, baby. Just a month. That's all.
Exactly.
I've done it before. I've done it before, and it was great.
And that's I got to get this the summer bod back.
There you go.
For summertime shy 2023. I gotta put the work in these next couple months to be putting myself out there. So
we've been out on the beaches. We've been out on the beaches in Chi-Town.
Yeah, we know how it goes.
Mike, we're blessed to know you. I know our listeners are gonna get so much out of this, man. And above all else, man, we appreciate you and keep going, all right?
I appreciate that out of you guys, Luke. It was awesome meeting you, brother, and thank you guys for having me on, and keep doing your thing.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Mike.
Much love, Mike. Appreciate you, bro. Keep going.
100%. See you guys.
Luke, talk to me, brother.
Buddy, rugby star extraordinaire from Villanova, and just absolutely hammered it out. Really talked about a couple things that we hammer all the time. Like one of them, making sure you're talking to your support group, right? If you're living by yourself, especially, if you're not getting out and about, especially, text them, call them. I guarantee you other people want to have a conversation with you. Okay? Just hit them up, see what they're doing.
Yeah, man. And guess what? Everybody gets into funks. Not everything is a mental health disorder or a mental health illness.
Right.
Funks, bumps in the road, it's part of life, no matter how big, how small. But keeping those in check, it goes a long way with your people and addressing them and making those positive changes. Man, that was awesome. I'm fired
Powerful.
up. But
impactful.
Speaking of hammering some stuff out, give me the CNC BNC ad read.
Oh, come on now. You know you want it.
I do.
Look, CNC, BNC, we appreciate you. Homegrown Design and Apparel. We'll get the new website and the new Instagram in the bio after the show. Make sure y'all are reading those bios. It kind of gives you a nice little recap of what Mike has talked about this episode and what other people have talked on before. But look, Homegrown Design and Apparel, man. I think I'm going to get a hydrate or dihydrate neon sign in my room. I think that's what I need to do just to remind myself to hit that gallon mark for the day. And I know CNC and BNC can hook me up. Look, you just got to call them. You just got to text them. You got to go to the website and, Pat, don't hit me with that right now. Pat's got the gallon jug right there. But yeah, man, Homegrown Design and Apparel. We appreciate you so much for supporting the podcast, and go visit their website and check out all the cool stuff they got.
Exactly. CNC and BNC appreciate that partnership and sponsoring the pod. Check it out. If it's apparel, if it's design, whatever it may be. Homegrown Design is the one-stop shop. Appreciate you guys. Well, what we'll do, social media shout out. Luke, good one this week.
Yeah, I'll hammer this social shout out so you can take the charity one, man, because I'm excited for this social. Dak Prescott and Solomon Thomas. So Dak's quarterback, Solomon Thomas defensive end. They appeared on a little talk show this week where they came out about their mental health struggles and their family members struggling with mental health and how their support groups had lifted them up. And I got a couple quotes from both of them. Dak said whenever he was struggling with some stuff. You know, he's been injury prone for the first, I can't remember how many years, maybe 6 years, and now
Right.
5 or 6 now. But he's been injury prone for most of those years, maybe not the first 2, but most of them. And he said one of the questions he asked yourself, right? Some of that self introspection that we talk about that is massively important for your mental health. How are you really doing? Just think about that. You've got to really let that settle in, right? And for Pat, that may be his time in the shower, right? For me, sometimes I cut the music off in the car and I think about it on the way to work. I got a 30-minute drive at least. So it gives me time to think about some stuff. How are you really doing? You know, and that question is not going to be easy to answer if you're doing it the right way for the first time. Okay. If you hit it up after, you know, a month or 2, or maybe a year later, and you've been asking yourself that once a month, I guarantee you're going to like the answer that you get. Right. I guarantee you that you will.
Love that.
And then Solomon, he had a quote, not necessarily a question that he asked himself, but this kind of comes from the athlete perspective, right? People being judged on things that's not necessarily themselves. He said, we're human beings first and foremost, but we're not looked at as such. He said, we're judged on a good and bad performance. We need to get back to being looked at as people. I mean, that's just powerful, dude.
I absolutely love that. And with Dak Prescott doing this for a couple of years, the more that he starts speaking up, now he's starting to bring people with him. I know we shouted out Hayden Hurst a couple months ago during the NFL playoffs. Yep. There's a viral video of them dapping each other up, talking about it. This is cool stuff in the NFL. And we talked about Giannis in the NBA and a lot of other athletes on this pod, but speaking up and understand that they struggle too. They're not invincible by any means, means. Awesome. Luke, appreciate you walking through that. And I want to touch on the charity of the week. That's going to be actually the American Foundation and Suicide Prevention. Actually, this was done by No Empty Seat. So shout out to No Empty Seat on Insta. They're doing a bunch of different wristbands, shining the light on suicide prevention. We'll throw that in the show notes and on our story as well. But shout out No Empty Seats. Shout out everybody ending the stigma, doing their thing. But 70% of the proceeds go to these items, and 30% is donated to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So shout out No Empty Seats. We appreciate you guys and girls over there on the gram. Luke, we do have one more segment before I do wrap us up today. What name did we decide on?
I think we're going to go with mental health mailbag for this one, dude. I kind of like the ring to it.
Mental health mailbag. Well, this is how we're going to start wrapping up every week. Luke, you know me. I would have stood on I-90 and asked for questions aside, but I can't do that.
I care about you too much. I care about you too much, buddy.
I appreciate you, and you're good for my mental health, brother. And the question of the week, mailbag wise, is going to be this. Luke, what do I do if the support system, social media, counseling, therapy, what if it doesn't help at first?
Yeah, man. It's tough because it's not something where you're going to get immediate results, because no easy change is going to be a quick fix. We're all coming from different backgrounds. We're all coming from different perspectives. When anybody gives you advice, there's automatically that influence of their background on that. So it may not work for you, and that's okay, because you got to try different approaches, which may help different people just to figure out what's going to help you. Right? It was like the Zach Gale episode. I can't remember what episode that was now. Maybe 10. Something that feels like we've been doing this forever now.
Right.
But cold showers, tried it out, was not for me. Right? That's just a simple example. But you got to be willing to try it out to know what doesn't work, so you can find what does work. And to me, you have to get there by yourself almost. Other people can help you get there, but you have to be ready to make a change before you make a change. Nobody can make a change for you. What do you think, Pat?
Look, I love that, man. And being able to compare and contrast your routine, I have done that 1,000 times, because it's not one size fit all. You know, your issues and things that you're struggling with, other people might excel. It's like life in general.
Yeah.
I think understanding that this routine can be changed. It's not one size fits all, and it's what works for you, right? That's the big thing. Don't give up. That's the keep going mantra. Stay another day with us. Keep going. Keep trying. I promise you, from 2 guys, 3 guys with Mike still in here that have gone through this, it gets better. If you need anything, we're here. We want to make sure we're a resource for you guys and girls. And it gets better. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You are enough. You're enough today and going forward.
100%, man. And that's, man, I can't say anything more than that. You're enough. I mean, what a statement, right?
Luke, I could not agree more, man. And like I said, if anybody ever needs anything, our website is now open. Our DMs are open on Instagram. We're here, and we're going to give you that push to keep going. And if we can't do it, we'll get you in touch with somebody or some habits that will.
100%. Our networks will help you out. They're being super supportive of the pod, and we appreciate that. Guys, you guys know what to do. Just keep going.
Luke, keep going, bro. Love you so much.
Love you, buddy.